Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, a podcast in which I, your host, Mark Ducano, ask the big questions about comedy. What is it? Who is it? And why is it? To help me, I've enlisted some of the experts in their field, comedians, promoters and fans, all of whom I confidently predict will be unable to answer any of these questions. This is the second part of a chat I had with one of my favourite comedians and human beings. If you haven't listened to the first part, it's okay, but obviously I do recommend you listen to it at some point. I love talking to comedians about comedy, and if you like listening to what they have to say as much as I do, then please like, subscribe, review, rate and share the podcast. Now without further ado, let's get back to our chat with stand-up comedian Rich Wilson. Are you more comfortable as an MC or as a spot?
I like both, actually. I'm all right with doing both.
Yeah.
And it got to a point I was like, I'm going to come away from MCing because you kind of get known as an MC. Some people don't understand that you're not just an MC, you're a comedian that is able to MC. You have the skills to be able to MC. They're not exclusive to one another from one another. Mm. And I was getting to a point, I'm like, I'm always MCing, I want to start doing more spots. And then the comedy circuit kind of crashed a little bit, and I was like, look, I'm just happy to be gigging. So whatever you want me to do is what you want me to do. Yeah. But now naturally, people are starting to book me to do spots. It's just happening on its own. People are going, yeah, actually, we'll get you to open, we'll get you to close. Mm. I'm happy to go wherever, really. As long as I'm gigging, I'm happy. So when you MC, there is a feeling of achievement. Like you've built a night. Like you went on first, got on warmed up, and then you got the first act on, and you built a framework that meant the audience had a good time, the acts had a good time. You cultivated that whole night that meant everyone leaves at the end going, what a night. What a night. And that's all thanks to you building that night. And I love that. There's a real sense of achievement. And I don't see myself when I'm MCing, I'm not looking at the audience going, right, you are going to enjoy this tonight. I see myself as in with the audience. I've got my arms round them and we're all facing the stage and I'm going, we are going to have a fucking good night tonight. This is going to be amazing. Are you up for this? That's how I see it. And so, I'm happy doing either. I do love MCing. I love doing a spot. I'm just happy to be doing it,
I've told a couple of people in the past that if I had to write out my list of the top 5 people I'd want to MC my fantasy gig, your name would be on that list.
Oh, mate, thank you. That's very kind.
For sure. I think you're a fantastic MC.
Thanks. I always get caught. I'm a safe pair of hands.
You say that, but I mean, what's great and what is recognisable when you come out on stage in any scenario, as a spot, as a show, or as an MC, you have established an incredible immediacy to your establishing this rapport straight away.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. I really appreciate that. I do love people, and I want people to have a good time, and I want to, especially now because people can't afford it. And so if they've managed to find the money to come out to a comedy show, I want to do the best I can do and give them the best, give them value for money. And they go away going, oh yeah, I'm glad we scraped together that money to do that. Yeah. So you want them to come back, and that's the key in it.
Yeah,
getting people to come back. Otherwise, we're all fucked.
Let's talk about international. You've toured Australia, New Zealand. You've been nominated and won awards on that basis. I mean, how is touring internationally for you?
You don't realise how colloquial your material is until you go somewhere else and you go, And I'm not just talking about the underground in London, but just your references are so small. You don't realise until you go somewhere and you're like, oh shit, I just sound like a little Englander. I've not been anywhere. Whereas especially if you've been with Aussie comics like Mick Nevin, where they've done Malaysia and they've travelled because you have to travel because the comedy circuit in Australia doesn't exist. You've got gigs on the Gold Coast, you've got Sydney, you've got Perth, but it's so spread out. It's very difficult to make a living from doing comedy in Australia. So they've gone out. So like I say, they've done Malaysia, they've gone up and they've done New Zealand, and then they've gone over to America. And it's not until you talk to them and you go, oh shit, or you watch them and they're talking about what people are like from different countries, what different customs, different this, different that. And you're going, oh, yeah, I bought some beans the other day from the supermarket. And you suddenly go, oh, I need to, instead of looking down like that, you've got to start looking out and up.
Yeah.
And you have to be international. And that's a really hard lesson to learn. And you don't learn until you're out of the country. It's it's hard, man. It's hard.
Have you found, you mentioned talking about references, but have you found jokes where it's not the reference, but the style of humor maybe has just not landed?
Oh, well, now, in New Zealand, I love New Zealand. It's my home from home. They have welcomed me with open arms. It's a beautiful place. Yeah. Scotty, who owns the Classic, which is one of the best clubs, not just in New Zealand, but in the world. It's every detail of that club is so so well thought out. It's perfect. Mm-hmm. And I remember being there, and I remember I was doing a bit, and it was quite self-deprecating, which a lot of my stuff is. And I was halfway through, and a guy in the front row went, "Oh, mate." And I'm like, "What?" He went, "Yes, come on, man." He goes, "Don't be so hard on yourself." And you're like, "Oh, you can do a little bit of it, but you can't. You have to." They quite like it if you're a bit more self-assured, not necessarily overly confident, but just be more self-assured. So that was an eye-opener where they're like, "All right, mate, things aren't that bad." Whereas in the UK, we're quite dour, aren't we? And to show off. If you're overly confident, is to be seen to show off. So we don't do it so much, do we? So that was quite an eye opener. But
we like people who fall on their ass.
We like people that fall on their ass. Marcus Bergman's got a brilliant bit about that. Because we've all got low self-esteem. We've all got it. He goes, you ever met someone with high self-esteem? God, and he's just like, and it's brilliant, and it's absolutely perfect. Yeah. So that was quite that was a lesson learnt on stage, and then you've got Australia where they're quite sort of brash. They're quite in your face a little bit more. America, there's that bullshit about them not understanding irony, and of course they understand irony. That's ridiculous. The irony is they understand it. But again, that's your references. I remember I did a gig at the LA Comedy Club in Vegas, and when you're on stage, the fountains of the Bellagio Hotel are behind you out the window. So however long it is, you're on stage and you're just lit from the back with these things going on. And you're chatting away in this nightclub. And then the MC said, he said it on stage. He goes, I enjoyed that. He goes, but it was like a really bad cell phone connection. He goes, I understood some of it, but then it was like it cut out. I didn't understand some of the bits you were saying. And you go, you got to change things like, you can't, sweets, got to change it to candy, just different things, and that, but you learn that by being there. So I do love traveling, and that's something else people say to me all the time. Are you successful? Because I've never heard of you. You go, I've traveled the world. I've been everywhere, and that's just through comedy. Which if that's not seen as successful, then I don't know what is,
Yeah.
That's the thing. I've been everywhere, and that's an absolute privilege. So, I'm skint, but at least I've been around. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your podcast.
Okay.
Or podcasts. The fantastic Insane in the Membrane.
Thanks, man.
And its offsprings, Them Brain and Fem Brain. They're incredible, and you've spoken to some incredible people, and just the conversations in it are great, and I cannot sing its higher praises for it. One of the things I need to find out first and foremost is why this podcast?
This is a thing. I didn't realise that all the things I've been doing in my life have all been working towards what I do now. Like when I was at college, I was studying community care because I wanted to go into care work, and so I was in Croydon doing a thing called Croydon Y Training, which was like the YTS, like the youth training scheme.
Yeah.
And I remember doing that, and then I ended up then halfway through that course, the Lisa, who's now the mother of my children, became pregnant with my first son. So I had to sort of stop college, go and get a job. Ended up working in care homes, looking after the elderly, and then through that Lisa's mum was doing some work, a thing called Kids Camp, which was looking after physically and mentally disabled children. And we used to, in the summer, to give respite to the parents, we'd take the kids out for the day, take them to Thorpe Park or wherever we'd take them, to the zoo and whatever else. So I ended up doing all that sort of care work. And then later on, so that was always there. So I always had that in me. And then later on, through various failed relationships and my behaviour not being, I was shit. I was a shit person. I kept upsetting people. Ended up having counselling. And then as I came out of counselling, I did Hardcore Listings with Stu Whiffen and Chris Glasson on the Distraction Pieces Network, which is Scroobius Pip.
Yeah.
I was always a big fan of Scroobius, so I was happy to be getting involved with that. And after I did that podcast, one of their producers, Brad Acton, messaged me and went, "You were really good on that. I think you should do your own podcast." And I'm like, I've never thought about it before. I don't know what I'd do. So he went, "Look, I'll come over. I've got all my recording gear. We'll just sit and chat, and then we'll see what comes out." So he came over. We start chatting. He's got it all recorded, all the thing. He starts telling me about this story about him. And I'm like, and so we got into this conversation. I'm like, "Well, how'd that make you feel?" He goes, "Yeah, this is really the first time I've talked about it." And we got right into it. And then we sort of finished, and we both looked at each other and went, "This is a podcast about men opening up about their feelings. That's what this should be about." And I'd already had a chat with Milo McCabe, who's now Troy Hawk. And Milo is a trained psychotherapist. And he was the first comedian that I told in a green room, because he said to me, "How are you?" And I said, instead of going, "Yeah, I'm fine," I said, "I've just been having counselling." And he looked at me like, "You have?" Because normally I'm just like smiling and like bouncing around and like, "Yeah, how you doing, man?" No one knows really that I was crying inside, that classic thing. And talking to him, and he went, "Oh my God." And he started to tell me about his issues. And you're like, "Oh my God." And we opened up and talked to each other. So then that all kind of, at the same time, was happening with Brad. And then Brad had some other things to deal with, so I didn't speak to Brad again. But the seed was already sown and the idea was there. So I remember Jade was doing, she's doing the continuity for MTV. And her producer, Paul Daniels, I know, right? he had said to Jade, I want to branch out and start doing things like podcasts and things like that. She happened to mention that I was wanting to start a podcast. So she hooked us two up. She went, "You two should chat to each other." So I got talking to him and I said, "I think it's got to be about this." And he was like, "That sounds great. We need a title." And I was like, yeah, well, we'll think about it anyway. So I remember sitting on my bed, and I remember just sitting on the bed, looking in the mirror. I had this dressing table in front of the bed, and I just sat there. And honestly, to this day, I don't know where it came from. It just popped into my head, insane in the membrane. And I just went, hallelujah. And I fell on the bed and I went, it's that. And that all comes from me mishearing the lyrics of that song. And it just, when something's meant to be, it just happens all on its own. And it just steamrolled. And I remember, and Jade bought me this recording equipment and she went, "Right, you need to go and record people. Just go off." And I was texting comics going, "Would you come and chat?" And every single one of them went, "I'd love to. Come to my house at this time." So I ended up going, I went everywhere. I went to, Tez Ilias was like the first one, Phil Ellis. And then I'm in Brixton and I'm wandering around and I bumped into Phil Wang and I said, "Do you want to do this?" He went, yeah, we haven't got to it yet. But he was like, yeah, I'd love to, mate, love to. And then I remember, I texted my mate, Michael Smiley, the actor, and who was Tyres in Spaced. So I mean, he and I have known each other for a few years. And I thought, I'm in Brixton, he lives here, and I haven't seen him for a while. So I messaged him. I went, "Are you around?" He's like, "I've got a meeting." He goes, "But I'll be around at like 2:00. Oh, brilliant. So we meet up, we have coffee, and he says, "What are you doing?" I went, "Well, I'm doing this podcast. It's about this, that, and the other." And he went, "All right." I went, yeah, I've been emailing all my mates, I've been messaging all my mates, and he got his phone out. He goes, "Yeah, well, I don't seem to have a message from my friend Rich Wilson." I went, "Well, I thought you were busy. Do you want to do it?" He went, "Yeah." "Do you want to do it now?" So we finished our coffee, went back to his, set it all up, got chatting, and it's one of the best interviews that's ever been. People still comment to me now. They still message me now going, "I've just listened to Michael Smiley. It was a beautiful thing. It was so open, honest, raw. There's tears at the end. You can hear us hugging. It's such a beautiful moment, and it epitomised everything that the podcast is. It's men sitting in a pub or a coffee shop and we're talking about things that are upset us and our thoughts and our feelings. It just came from that. And then I suddenly realised that everything I'd done in my life, and all the, like, learning how to talk about tragedy and feelings and emotions, but in a humorous way, everything I'd done had come together in this podcast. And I couldn't fucking believe it. I couldn't believe it. Being able to talk about these horrible things like, attempted suicide. There was Mark Lemon who's been on, and his dad was murdered, and we talked about that. But being able to do it with humour, which makes it more palatable, and it's just become its own thing. And I want to say that I worked really hard, but it's just everything just was meant to be. It just came. I don't know. Everything in my life just happens, and I'm just sort of sat there going, "No, is this what we're doing now? All right, we'll go and do that now." And I've learned so much about human beings from it, because that's the thing. It's become now. It's me learning from that person, from the guest. It's not about me, because you hear that on a lot of podcasts. It's all about the host. And halfway through, you're like, could you just shut up for a minute? Just let them talk. I don't give a shit about you. I want to listen to them. And that's what the podcast, and I think that comes from MCing as well, is that ability to let the guest talk and make it about them rather than you showboating. So all these things I've picked up, all these skills that I've picked up from all the gigs and the jobs that I've done and my life I've led, have all fed into the podcast. I think that's why people like it, because it's just me chatting with people that I'm interested in. Yeah. Like this now, like you and I having a chat. It's just like, I'm not showing off. I'm not trying to go, oh, look how wonderful I am. You're just really easy to talk to, and this is a nice thing. We should all talk a bit more. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back onto the podcast, but just very quickly. You see, I said no one wanted to hear from me. It's about the guest. All right. That's just something for my friends there who said, you don't talk enough. It's not my job to talk. It's their job to talk.
Well, this is it. If you watch like Parkinson and people like that, they barely say anything. It's they ask the question and then they let the guest go with it. Graham Norton, classic as well. He'll chip in now and again, but he just lets the guest get on with it. And that's a sign of a good host, And you're able to steer it in either way. Like you'll go, well, let's bring it back to that, or let's take it over this way. And that is a skill all of its own. And that's you to have that skill, mate, is not many people have that. So take that with you, mate. That's good.
I'll put that in my pocket.
Yeah. Take that.
That'll go on the poster.
Put that in your pocket.
I haven't got a poster, but if I had, that would be.
We'll get you one. We'll knock you one up.
We'll knock one up. Yeah. So these people that you talk to, I mean, there's a lot of comedians, but there's other people. It's a broad church that you're chatting with on the podcast. You've mentioned there briefly that it's just been easy to talk to, but is it you that's easy to talk to? Because of this personable nature that I've said about you when you're MCing, when you're doing a spot, you have an easy approachability. Do you think that they're ready to open up to you, or because they know you?
It's funny. A few people have said there's just something about me that's quite disarming. I think because I kind of come at you with my arms open going, mate, let's have a chat. Not like I'm going to talk at you. It's kind of very open arms and like kind of, mate. And it's funny, a lot of comics have said afterwards, a lot of guests have gone, I didn't know I was going to talk about any of that. I had a plan of what I was going to say, and it's gone off on this tangent, and I've told you all manner of stuff that I haven't really spoken about before. I don't really know what that is. I don't know why that is, but people just feel comfortable talking to me.
Yeah.
And I think they know. The other thing is as well with the podcast is that the guest has complete control. So if they say something and then later on they go, oh, I don't really want that out in the public domain. And I say that to them. So look, you have complete control over this. If you message me and go, look, I want that taken out, not a problem. I'll have that. Not a problem at all. So that makes people comfortable. And it is funny when you meet someone when it's a comic, I've probably met them before, or I've spoken to them, or we've had a kind of interaction. So it's a bit easier. But when it's someone that I've never met before, I get nervous about that. And I'm like, oh, fuck, what is this going to be like? But a classic example, Glenn Matlock, Sex Pistols bassist.
Yep.
Never met him before. Oh, no, I'd met him once, years ago, at a Small Faces convention, but he wouldn't have remembered me. we were sort of like in the same kind of circle of people that were chatting. And I remember him, and he was quite standoffish at the beginning, and you can hear it as well. He's like, "Oh, who's this dickhead?" You know, he wasn't being arrogant. He's like, you know, he's getting on. He's, you know, as you get on, your tolerance levels get a bit thin on the ground, don't they? And he's like, "Who's this fucking dickhead?" Mental health. Why are we talking about this? He's a comedian, is he? He hasn't made me laugh once. You can kind of get that vibe, but you can feel it. Producer Paul said it as well. He said, "There's 20 minutes in, and you can hear him just go, 'Oh yeah, now this is all right actually,' and he just opens up, starts talking shit, and it's like you've known him years." And I think I don't know why that is. It just happens, and I can't tell you what I do, but I think it's just that I couldn't tell you. Just there's obviously something about me that puts people at ease, and I can't argue with that. I'm very lucky to have that. No idea where that comes from. Who knows?
I wrote something down to myself here as a sort of more of a prompt for me. But what I wrote was because comedians draw on their own lives and their experience, maybe it makes it easier for them to talk about those lives and experience, and makes them easier for them to open up about it. But then, of course, I've reminded straight away that, well, you don't just talk to comedians, and why don't they just use the examples from their lives that they already use on stage? What helps them bring out more or go deeper and examine it further? And I think it's what you've just said there. You're just easier to talk to.
Yeah. And I think because I'm coming at it with things I've done, and I'm very honest. Like someone said to me, I can't remember what it was. It was a reviewer, and said that I was painfully honest. Like some of the things I talk about, and they go, "You talk about the fact that you've cheated on people." I go, "Yeah, because I wasn't proud of it, and I wasn't cheating on someone because it wasn't like notches on the bedpost. Oh, look at me, I'm stringing two people along. It was like I was in a situation I didn't want to be in, and I didn't want to upset everybody, and it was kind of I was a dickhead, and I wasn't proud of my behaviour, and that's why I talk about it. And then from that, people go, "Shit, I've done that," and they go, "Yeah." Now we're removing the stigma of it. This automatic assumption that, oh, well, you're cheating, you're a love rat, you just want all these women on the go at the same time. And you're like, no, I didn't know. I was just feeling different. I didn't know what to do. And I got in a situation and I feel like a proper dick, and I was being horrible, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And because I talk about these things, people are more at ease to go, oh yeah, like I say, I've done that, or I've done a similar thing, or was this one time. So I come at it with my stalls already open. These are all the things I've done. And people go, oh my God, you've been horrendous. You go, yeah, I have. And then they go, oh, I've done that. And then it opens up and people start talking about these things. And so what you'll find with a lot of comedians with their material, they've picked out the best bits, and you, with good joke writing, you have to just get rid of the fat. Make sure all the details are in place, all the relevant details are in place, and to build the pressure to make that punchline land. But when you actually talk about the story, they go, well, yeah, that comes from the fact that I was married, and then that happened, and so with the podcast, you find out the stories behind the punchlines, which is really fascinating, and having people on that aren't comedians, because there's too many podcasts with comedians on. And
Sorry.
No. You know what I mean? It's like, and I love comedy, but I think because of the nature of the podcast, I think what we need to do as well is have people on that understand how the brain works. So you have brain specialists on, or you have someone that has, someone like a grief counsellor, or someone that deals with suicide people. Or I've had family members on. I had my son's sort of cousin on, who was fostered by the family. I had him on talking about his life, and I think people need to hear other people's stories to make themselves feel more comfortable with their own stories. Because there's that, again, like I said to you earlier, you just assume you're the only one that feels this way, or you're the only one that's gone through this, and you go, do you know what? We are all fundamentally the same. Doesn't matter where you're from in the world. Doesn't matter where you're from. Culturally different, but fundamentally, you're all still trying to get milk. You're all still trying to pay the bills. You're all still going. You're all still cheating on each other. You're all still doing whatever you're doing, wherever you are in the world. So, chances are you've probably gone through a similar thing that I've gone through. And by hearing me talk about it, it puts you at ease and makes it easier for you to talk about it. And that's the point. If we talk, we just need to talk more. When they say reach out, talk to each other, that's what they mean.
Yeah.
You know, talk. You don't necessarily have to sit there talk about your feelings, but you can just talking will just loosen you up, and just all manner of things come tumbling out. And that's how we'll remain on this planet. You know.
Yeah.
It's a funny one. I love being a human being. It's fucking weird.
Part of what you've said there, I mean, we've said about like affability, but you also got a sensitivity, and you and I are a similar vintage. So I think in certain ways we're trying to understand the world around us in a similar perspective. But what you're doing is you're doing it through the mechanics of being able to talk to people. You've got insane in the fem brain now, trying to understand female perspective, insane in the them brain for non-binary.
Yeah.
From a standpoint of unfamiliarity, how do you approach those conversations?
Well, I think that setting it up as the safe space of a podcast to be able to ask these questions. That's because when we did Fembrain, that came from a conversation again with my ex-partner Jade. We were talking about something, and she went, "You don't know as much about women as you think you do." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. Of course I do." It's not till you start having a conversation you go, "Fuck, I don't know. I didn't know what I know about the menopause. I didn't know what I know about periods now. I didn't know what I know about just what it's like to be a woman in a very sort of, very masculine world. I didn't understand that. And so having these comments, that's why I'm able to say, right, what does it feel like? What do these things actually feel like? And again, people opening up and talking to me about it. I learned about endometriosis. I just learned about what it's like to be a woman, and then talk to people that are non-binary, because that was new to me. Like you've just said, we didn't have that when we were growing up. There were men and women, and then there was trans people, but there was that classic thing of they're just people that were born in the wrong body. It wasn't really talked about, and so, but now talking to these people and getting more of an understanding. The podcast is a safe space for me to ask questions that you wouldn't normally be able to ask. Like if I was out in a pub and I saw someone who was trans or I thought was trans, you could walk up and go, "So what's all this about then? What about that then?" It'd be rude. But in these environments, I can go, would you do me the honour of coming on the podcast? I want to talk to you about trans issues. I want to talk to you about what it's like to feel or to be non-binary or identify as non-binary. I want you to talk to me about pronouns. I want you to talk, and that I'm able to do it that way. And so they're coming on board knowing what they're getting into. They're like, "Oh yeah, I want to come and talk to you about that." Because then that helps us understand it a bit more. So people that don't have access to a podcast or don't have, that don't do their own podcast can listen and go, "Right. Oh, I get it now." Because my interviewing skills are very limited. I'm very clunky. But I was sort of Jordan Gray about being trans. And I'll just say like, "So what is it like to have, women's breasts and a penis? Like, what is, and it's clunky and it's shit, but I know what I'm trying to say."
Yeah.
And that's the safe, and I can do that within the safety of a podcast. And people know that I'm learning, and I want other people to listen and learn from it as well. So I'm trying to open the doors up to people, so I'll ask the questions that you might not necessarily be able to. And that's, again, I just want to help people, and that's why I do it.
Yeah.
It's the amount of messages I get from people going, "Thank fuck you asked that," because my daughter is now identifying as a they them, and it's a very new world for me. And listening to your podcast has helped me understand it a bit more. And that, I mean, what's not to love about that? If you're making that little bit of a difference,
Yeah,
that's what it is. People come on the podcast knowing what I'm about and knowing that there's no malice. I just want to learn. I want people to listen to it and learn as well. So that you and I don't walk around like fucking dinosaurs. Well, what's all that about? Women and birds in dresses? What the fuck? Birds in jeans, men in dresses. What the fuck? That sort of shit. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, when I was growing up, everything that was bad in the world was gay. Oh, that's gay.
Yeah. You're not attaching sexuality to it.
Yeah, it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And you're learning now that you go, actually, probably shouldn't say that. So you're learning, but there's an assumption that men of a certain age, certainly straight white men, we're all lumped in with all the lunatics that are running the world. You're like, no, we're just as fucked as you are. We're just trying to work it out. know?
Yeah, it's just because we've had everything go our way for so long that we don't know how to react to people who haven't had it.
We didn't know. We didn't know how privileged we were. And now they go, you're so privileged. I had no idea. I was that privileged. I had no idea.
I didn't notice. It didn't affect me personally. Therefore, I didn't know it was going on.
I didn't know to ask.
I don't know what I don't know.
Oh.
These are unknown unknowns. But what's great is that you take those lessons and you put them into your comedy.
Yes.
So even in your shows, you are re-asking those questions, and in asking those questions, I think you're educating. And again, it's not my jokes to tell, but I mean, you do a routine about menstruation, and it's a great performance. But it's not like something that a straight white male comic would talk about.
Well, that's it. The joke of it is, when I do the analogy and I'm jumping around, I'm going, it's like this, and then this happens, and then even then I'm not getting it quite right. And that's the bit where I'm like, I'm trying to show you that I understand, but clearly by what I'm saying, I get it, but I can't explain myself. And that's what I'm trying to get across, is that subtlety. Is like, I get it, but I can't explain to you how I get it, but you know that I get it. And that's what adds to all the funny. I think, that's me trying to explain it to people who already know as well.
It's a blind man explaining colours.
Exactly. That's why it's funny. That's why it's like, And I think that's, someone said to me, it was George, my mate George Bartlett, and he goes, you're carving out a niche as like the middle-aged dude that gets it, like he's progressive and he's trying. Whereas there's a lot. I was with someone the other night, and they spent the first 10 minutes just slagging off young people. And you're like, don't do that. You're going to alienate most of the room. You just got to embrace it and go, look, I'm not you. I'm glad you are where you are. And what I want you to do is not what I did and squander it. I want you to enjoy every waking moment. Don't race to be older because you're, I can't wait till I'm that age and I'll be this and this, that, and the other. Yeah. Have a moment. Be present and look around. And that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of going, because it's gets to a point where suddenly you're 50 and you're not this anymore, but that's what I think. I'm just trying to show people that we're not all fuddy-duddies, and some of us are still switched on.
We have a laugh about it, can't we?
Right? That's what's missing, though. That's what's missing is the humour in these conversations. People aren't, especially online, too busy wanting to destroy everybody. Like, you don't get it, so your life should be over. And you're like, if you just had a bit more of a laugh about it, you'd get more done. There'd be more understanding. There'd be more empathy in the world. Instead of you lot shouting at each other, if you just fucking down tall, stop banging on the bars, and just chill out a little bit and have a chat and have a laugh. Take the piss out of each other. That's why humour used to work. You knew that people liked you because they were taking the piss out of you when you were growing up. Is when they weren't taking the piss. That's when you knew they didn't like you. Yeah. Go, but that was bullying. You go, not really. To a certain extent, it was joshing. It was just joshing. Yeah. And you learned very quickly to do it back. And that's how we get on. And there needs to be more humour in this, rather than just shouting at each other and going, well, clearly you're this and clearly you're that. And so everyone needs to chill the fuck out a little bit, That's why they should start putting ecstasy in the water.
Controversial option.
MDMA on your toast, and then everyone will chill out a bit. I'm not advocating drug use, by the way. Anyone listening to this, chill out.
Well, again, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a fantastic podcast, Insane in the Membrane and et al. But also, there's Islington Radio, your love of music, Tuned Up Time Machine. Tell me how that started. What's that all about?
You know what? That came from Instagram. I set up an Instagram page called Tidying the Flat with Tunes On, and it was where I was tidying up. I realised I was tidying up a lot, and every time I was doing it, I was putting records on. So I've got a massive vinyl collection. I got most of it's from my dad, and I was just doing that. And so I was like taking photos of my records. I was going, right, this today I'm tidying the flat with tunes on. I'm playing this. This is the soundtrack to this, that, and the other. And then that built and built and built. And then a guy called Tom messaged me one day, and he just said, do you want to do a radio show? I was like, yeah, of course I do. He goes, I want you to do a 2-hour radio show. It's on Islington Radio. It's on the Mixcloud app, and you can do what you want. And I spoke to Paul, who does my podcast. I went, I've been asked to do this. And he went, fuck yeah. He used to work at KISS back in the 90s. So he's done all that. He used to work with Phil Jupitus and a few others.
Mm-hmm.
So he's well versed in it, and he was up for it. And then straight away we're like, bang. And then I asked Vic Slayton to join us later on, and then and then we got a guy, producer Paul's brother-in-law, Big Knobs. He came on, and it became like a zoo radio show with some kick-ass music, and it just kind of just happened. So yeah. And now it's going to be on Spotify now, so it'll be a bit more accessible because Mixcloud, no disrespect to them, but you can't find it. You know, you go on there, it's a pain in the ass. Whereas it'll be on Spotify, everyone's got that. So yeah, and I love music. I think I love music more than I love comedy, and I love comedy. But I'll chat about music all day, every day, all genres. If it's good, I'll listen to it. I love music so much. Going to see music, going to see bands. My son's a drummer as well. He's studying music in Bristol. Mm-hmm. My eldest is a dancer. So this music's always been around. So yeah, I love it. Yeah. I absolutely love it.
Is there anything in music or in your experience of listening to music or live music or whatever that has in any way influenced your comedy or your persona on stage?
I think everyone growing up wants to be a rock star. You know, I used to play the tennis racket in the mirror. In the 80s, I wanted to be Mark King from Level 42. And then,
nice. And
then I went on, I wanted to be, the first album I played tennis racket to the whole way through was I Just Can't Stop It by The Beat. It's got a mirror in the bathroom on it. And that, I wanted to be Dave Wakeling. And I just remember I was Dave Wakeling every night after school. And then the first band I went to see live was The Damned when I was 14. My dad took me to see them. And that took me, so I wanted to be Dave Vanian. And then a bit later on, Happy Mondays turned up. And Happy Mondays were like my mates. They were like your older brothers. I just loved Happy Mondays. And so I just wanted to be Shaun Ryder. And then going along, I wanted to be Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam. And then I wanted to be Liam Gallagher. And then, you know, so it's always been there. I remember seeing Oasis in 2008. I got to the Comedy Caf, which is sadly no longer with us. And Wayne used to run the Comedy Caf. And I walked in. And he went, "What?" He goes, "What's wrong with you?" I went, "What do you mean?" He went, "You're fucking swaggering around." And I went, "Oh, I saw Oasis last night." He gave me a mojito, the strongest mojito I've ever had. And he went, "You take that on stage, right?" And I swigged this mojito and I swaggered on stage. I'm emceeing as well on a Friday night. And I didn't even speak. I just stood there and I put my arms out like Noel Gallagher. And I just went like that, like I was Jesus. And the place just erupted. So, yeah, it's always been there. That swagger, I think, has always been there. Like the Shaun Ryder, Liam Gallagher sort of swagger. You know, I used to walk on stage to Underdog by Kasabian. That was my walk on music. So it's always been there. You know, it influences you. It influences the way you dress.
Yeah,
I'm into my shoes because of music, because I used to be a mod. And so everything I've ever done has mashed into who I am. So there's a through line with music and comedy that goes through everything I do, and I didn't even realise it. It just happens, you know. I don't trust anyone that doesn't like music. What's wrong with you?
Oh, well,
is that you? Is that
no? Bloody love music.
I was going to say, I was like, what?
Because I'm a nerd, I made a spreadsheet of all the comedy gigs I could remember.
Oh, really?
I'm still adding to it because some of them pop into my head. It's got about 1,500 lines on it at the moment.
Oh, really?
Of artists, like about 800 comics that I've seen going back to Little and Large in the 70s, you know.
Oh, God.
And I thought, well, you know what? I should do the same thing for all the gigs I've been to.
Yeah.
But these are the first 5 gigs I went to. This is all 1989 in the space of 4 weeks. First gig was the Monkees at Hammersmith Odeon.
What?
When there was 4 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
A couple of nights later, I went to see the Everly Brothers.
Fucking hell!
When there were still 2 of them.
Yeah. There's none of them now.
And then I went to see Transvision Vamp.
Oh my God! Yeah. Wendy James.
Wendy James is the bit I remember. The gig was not great. The following week, Suicidal Tendencies.
Fuck me.
And then the week after that, Anthrax at Brixton. So quite an eclectic mix. So if you don't like music, you know, you can't swing from the Monkees and within 4 weeks go see Anthrax.
Right. See, that's the same as me. I've been to see all sorts, you know, and the first and one and only stage dive I ever did was I went to see The Exploited, and I jumped off the stage. I missed the mosh pit and I hit the floor behind it all in between the rest of the crowd. And so, but then the following week I'm going to see Bros. So, you know, I just love it. Yeah.
I did one and only stage dive. It was an Ugly Kid Joe concert at the
Fucking hell.
TNC in Kentish Town.
You're not diving and catching the cradle, you're leaping off. Is that
No, not quite. I think it was like Madman or something
Right,
like that.
right,
But it was cracking. I mean, so I go, of all the gigs I choose, I just saw Megadeth at the Marquee. Why am I going to why am I stage diving?
the Marquee as well would be perfect.
The Marquee, how would have what
I never got to go to the Marquee, unfortunately.
Oh man. Oh, it's the stickiest venue in town. I tell you, it was. I saw Frank Sidebottom at the Marquee Club, and he was supported by Chris Lynham.
Oh, mate.
And yeah, I don't know. You remember Chris Lynham's great party trick?
Yeah.
For the benefit of the uninitiated, yes, Chris Lynham's grand finale was he would strip naked and stick a firecracker up between his butt cheeks
and then
walk up and down singing a song.
Yeah,
fantastic. I mean, it was a surprise.
Not anymore. Everyone's seen it now.
So we talked briefly influence of music on your comedy persona, and you talked a little about intro music and this, that, and the other. So how much do you think about who you are on stage? Is the person on stage the Rich Wilson sit here before me?
Yeah, I think it is now. Like someone said, I think it's Paul Pirrie, brilliant comic, and he said that I've managed to take who I am now and it's just an amplified version of who I am. It's just the same. But when you're coming through, you go through stages. You know, I wanted to be Dave Allen. I wanted to be Lee Evans. I wanted to be Louis C.K. for a bit until he got his dick out, and then you go, I don't want to do that anymore. I used to love Louis C.K.'s just his outlook, and I was like, I want to be more like him. The way he sees things is how I want to see things, and so there was a bit of an influence from that. So I wanted to be him for a bit. Norm Macdonald, Norm Macdonald's been a big influence on me. Bill Burr, a lot of American comics have been a big influence on what I do. But it's now you get to a point you go, actually, again, it was Marilyn, my ex-partner from before, and she said, you are enough. Being you is enough. You don't need to be anyone else. And now she's right. And you go, oh yeah, I am. Yeah, it's all right being me. So it's just, it's all the influences in there, but really it's just me. So you've met me, we've hung out. I'm the same. I think I'm the same as I am. I'm just a bit more animated, I guess, when I'm on stage, but it's more or less the same thing. I'm not that different, you know. That's why sometimes I don't even get changed for the gig. Just wander up. I'll be chatting away. I go, listen, I'll be back in a minute. I'll go and do that and then I come back.
What was your pandemic like? How hard was it on you? Or how, did you get some enjoyment out of it?
There were some highlights. There were some good bits. We did some fun stuff. But my relationship at the time was already failing. So it was very stressful. And, and it was just, that's what sort of saw the end of it, really. So, end of the first lockdown, I moved in with my mate. And that was it. It was almost starting again, which is what I've had to do. I've had to start again. And it just everything just sort of fell apart. My career, my relationship. I've had to start again, but I've been really lucky to have really good people around me that have helped me out. Like Paul Sweeney, my flatmate, I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but he saved my life, is what he did. And I'll never not be grateful to him. Forever, I will forever be in his debt. And I love him for that. And then meeting other people, and they got me back on track and helped me out with money and companionship and having a nice time. And then meeting Kate and moving to Brighton and going, oh yeah, now I'm starting this fresh life, this new life. And I'm very, very, now I can see that everything happens for a reason, and that was a good thing. The pandemic actually sorted things out, whereas in the pandemic, I thought that was it. I thought it was all fucked. Now I'm in a better place. And so it's become good, but it wasn't good. How was yours?
Oh, I fucking loved it.
Let's go back to it.
Yeah, get back to them good old lockdown days. Well, I'm a bit, I'll be honest, I had a decent job at the time, and I had to stay home for 2 months in a glorious warm spring, being paid full wage.
Mate, you live in the dream.
I was on a hammock in my back garden drinking rum in the middle of the day. It was glorious. It was the best time of my life.
Tosser.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, there definitely wasn't any FOMO. I noticed that.
No.
We were all locked down together. You weren't missing out on anything.
Yeah.
And there was that.
Yeah.
I felt strangely zen at the beginning of it. And we're like, oh, yeah, all right. We're going to just sit around eating and watching telly. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that. But I think as it went on, it got a little bit more stressful. I think because money was running out. That is one thing that ever since the lockdowns, like money wise, I'm still catching up. Because we lost our livelihood. You're reliant on people helping you out. You're reliant on doing jobs like working with your mate or doing labouring or whatever else I was doing. So that's that'll improve. It always does. But the knock-on effect from that has been a bit. It's been hard work, but we'll be fine. We're getting back out there.
No, I asked you about death on stage. So tell me about highlights. What's the most memorable moment? And it doesn't have to be on stage. It just be as part of being a comedian, being on the circuit. What's the most memorable experience you've had?
Oh, blimey. Been loads of them. I've been really lucky. I think walking in to do the open spot at the Comedy Store, and Chris Rock was on. Yeah. Like, fucking hell, that's something else. He was dying on his ass as well. He was bombing hard.
That has to be encouraging, doesn't it?
Well, that was it. If he's fucking biting it, I can bite it. I'll be fine. But then the next night, apparently, he came back and he absolutely stormed it. So I think he's all right. I've not really heard much of him about him lately. Highlights. I just see it all as a highlight. Every gig I do, I'm like, this is brilliant. I'm getting to do this. Yeah. Having travelled around the world, walking down the street in New York, I was going to the Ha Comedy Club. There was a guy who was back to me on his phone. And as I was walking down, he turned around on his phone. It was Al Pacino. And I was so shocked to see him. I went, it's Al Pacino. I'm like, at him. And he just turned back around. But I think all the people I've met, the life I've got, the life I've had, the life that's in front of me, it's all it's all a highlight. I've got to meet some incredible people. I've had dinner with Heston Blumenthal. I've been all over the world. I've done this, that, and the other, and I get to do this. I get to chat on podcasts, and you're like, no. There's still a bit of going, who's going to listen to me chatting? But someone will. And I've had a very interesting life, and that's all thanks to comedy. So, I can't really pick out a specific. There's been gigs where there's been thousands of people, and you can't even see how many people are there anymore because it's just a blur. And the roar of them laughing at something you've said is just immense, And then last night I was chatting to someone and he spat his drink out, and you're like, that's incredible. If you make someone spit their drink out, or just when you have to stop the gig because they're laughing so much, you're going to kill them. You have to, amazing. The whole thing is a highlight, I feel. I don't know how interesting that is to the listeners, but that's how I feel,
I know. That's beautiful.
Privilege.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've gained any life lessons, any philosophies that you've taken away from your career thus far?
I think just learning that we're all the same. Like I said earlier, we're all the same. Yeah. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. Like I say, different cultures on top, and there's different things, but fundamentally we're all pretty much the same. And I think the pandemic really shone a light on that. It didn't matter where you were on the social scale. It didn't matter how famous you were or how much money you had. We were all fucked at the same time. You had Backstreet Boys stuck in their houses. I mean, all right, their houses are like living in a shopping mall, but they still couldn't go anywhere. And you're just like, oh yeah. So I think I've learned that. Noel Fielding said the same thing. I remember him saying in an interview, he goes, we're all pretty much the same, And we should all own a cape at some point. He said that too.
I've got a cape. That's fine.
There you go. At some point, you should own a cape. There's a brilliant story. I play comedians football, so every Tuesday we meet up, and there's all like there was one week. It was everybody was there. John Bishop was there. John Oliver. Loads of famous people. Noel Fielding was there. It was brilliant. And a really good laugh. Russell Howard running around and all that. I remember talking to Noel because there's a story, and I said, "Is this true?" And he went, "Oh yeah." he was in some bar and he's got his cape on, and Noel Gallagher comes up to him and just goes to him, "It's not the fact that you're wearing a cape." He goes, "It's the fact it's a Tuesday." I was like, yeah, that's brilliant. And then he told me this story. There's a band called The Seeds, this 60s band. I can't remember the name of the lead singer. It's a brilliant name. Can't remember his name. But he said, like, because when Noel was telling people, I'm going to go and play football, they're like, "What the fuck are you going to wear to play football?" And he's like, "Shorts and boots. What are you on about?" Like, they just couldn't understand it. And he said he saw the lead singer of The Seeds walking up. I don't know where it was. I want to say King's Road or something like that in London. And he saw him. He had this big old wizard's cape on, and he just looked exactly how you'd imagine him to look. And he's like, "Yes, that's what it's all about." When people see you, they want to go, "Yeah, that's exactly how I thought you'd be." And that's, you know, I've learned about people are all the same. We all want the same thing, really. There's a few lunatics amongst us that just will never be satisfied and are never going to be happy. Doesn't matter how successful they become, they're always going to be stepping on people and fucking people over in order to get to this imagined place that even when they get there, that's not going to be enough, you know? They won't be happy until the moon is in the shape of their head. And then they'll be just like, "Well, no, I want more than that. I want all the planets." And you're never going to be satisfied. You need to chill out, mate. Get a cape, chill out.
So what about, I don't want to say missed opportunities, but things you haven't done yet? Because you've toured all over the world, all the things that you've said, you know, you've won awards, you've been here, done that. What haven't you done? What do you want to do?
I want to make a film, and that's what I'm working on now. I've got this idea for this film, and I want to make that. I've always wanted to make a film, not necessarily a TV show. I watch bits of telly, but TV shows, I can't. After the first couple of episodes, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I get it now." Whereas a film, it's all wrapped up in it. It's done in a couple of hours. It's like beginning, middle, and end. Done. Right. I don't have to invest any more time in that. That was great. I want to do that. I want to make a film because there's other ideas. Hopefully, if this film gets any traction, I'll be able to make another film that I want to make, which is I won't say who it's about, but it's a biopic I want to make. So that's what I want to. Now I'm getting older as well. I'm like, maybe I want to, you know, I can't travel around forever. I'm 50. I'm going to, you know, I can't be sleeping in Nottingham bus garage at 4 a.m. anymore. I can't be asked. So I want to make film. I want to get into film. So that's what I'm doing. I'm working on a film. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm open to anything. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to be an hour in an advert. So that's happening. There you go. You know, just got to say yes to things. The power of yes.
Well, is that a thing that now that you sort of say, well, you know, fuck it, just do it. Doesn't matter anymore. You're not going to worry about, you know, maybe when you're in your 20s or something and you're dressed up as a mod and you're thinking about your street cred and all of that bullshit. Now you sort of think, well, fuck it, doesn't matter, does it?
Fuck it.
It's either going to be an earner or a legacy, or it's not going to be anything.
This is it. The day I said fuck it, it's the day that my life changed. When you're not hemmed in by certain rules, regulations to do with fashion or whatever. I think that comes from people who've been in my life, like my ex-partner, and like, being a bit more brave with what you wear, being a bit more open-minded about stuff, being a bit more, and like Kate, who I'm with now, has been very influential. Where, you know, she's like, yeah, you just got to have some fun, have fun. Like, there's nothing funnier than farting, and she's always farting, and they were always like, and you go, yeah, that would have bothered me a few years ago. I would have been, oh no, I'm hiding in the bathroom, but now. So I think that just be open up and go, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, and then you'll have more fun. I'm just open to stuff. So we'll see. We'll see where we end up.
Where can we see you? What can we find out about what you're doing? What you got coming up?
I'm going to be at Aberystwyth Comedy Festival at the end of September, beginning of October, doing my one-man show. You Could Have It So Much Better. I'm doing all the clubs. I'll be running around doing all that. I'm filming. We haven't sorted out the details yet, but I'm going to be filming an hour special at Up the Creek.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to be doing that. And there's a bit more to it. It isn't just me doing comedy. You'll see it when it comes out. So I'm doing that. So I think it's because I started off there. It's nice to bring it back and show people where I'm at now, going from barman to doing a sell-out solo show. And it will sell out because you're all going to buy tickets. Thanks very much.
If it doesn't, that'll be a crime.
Yeah. That's the spirit. Thanks, mate.
I've seen you many times and wouldn't miss. And I've heard all the jokes, so I'd still go. So.
I'll have to start writing new ones now. I'm just doing all the gigs, Insane in the Membrane's really picking up a head of steam. We're putting a lot more. We're getting a lot of interest now, so we're putting more effort into that. So that's going to blow up. So it's all, and then hopefully this film will get off the ground, and there's a book that I'm writing, and just keep me busy, man. Yeah, you'll see me.
Yeah, no doubt.
And if anyone's listening, just drop me a line. Just drop me a message. I'll have a chat with you. I'm happy to do that. So lovely. It's been great. I've enjoyed this.
It's been fantastic.
I hope it's not boring. No, that's the only thing.
Not for a moment. So, Rich Wilson, finally, what is comedy in a nutshell?
I think it is. We're jesters. We are jesters, and there's too much. There's too much emphasis on using your platform to raise awareness for this, raise awareness for that. And I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking that at all. I think if that's what you want to do, that's how you see it, then absolutely. But I think you got to remember, yes, you are, raise awareness for certain things. But you got to remember that at the end of the day, you're a comedian, and it's all very well talking about all these things, but you have to be funny. You are a jester, and you're here to bring light relief to people's lives. That's what you're doing. If you want to be a spokesman for things, go be a politician or go do lectures. But as a comedian, you're supposed to comede. You're supposed to make people laugh, and you can still talk about the issues of the day. Of course you can, but it has to be funny. It has to be funny. Like the things I talk about, like the trans-neutral toilets. I talk about that issue, but I do it in a way that is palatable. People, I'm not making fun of the issues. I'm making fun of the people that have issues with the issues. That's where my humour comes from. And so at the end of the day, you're a jester. So get your little balloon and have a dance, all right? Because that's what you're here for. Your little curly shoes. You're supposed to be dancing around in front of everyone, distracting them from all the shit, all the idiots banging on about kettles.
I love that.
Mr. Claypole from Rent a Ghost. I remember him.
Yeah, Timothy Claypole. Oh,
that's us. That's what we are. We're him. We're Mr. Claypole from Rent a Ghost. Google it, kids.
I could talk to you for hours. Seriously, I absolutely love it.
It's been a real pleasure, and I hope it's entertaining, mate. That's all. And next time I see you, we'll have a pint.
Oh, for sure.
We'll get pissed and put the world to rights like we normally do.
Perfect.
Right, mate. Look after yourself.